Hey Vineyard family, today we celebrate the wisdom and countless contributions to the Christian tradition through the life and work of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. As a pastor, activist, and theologian, Dr. King gave us a vision for something called the beloved community, a community in which God's will is done on earth as it is in heaven, and society at large is transformed because of it. His legacy is alive and well today, continuing to challenge and point us towards greater love of God and neighbor. In yesterday's message, we discussed Jesus' humanity and what it looks like for us to be fully human. And ultimately, as Christ followers, being fully human involves caring for the humanity of the people around us. In his book, Strength to Love, Dr. King discusses caring for the humanity of others. And one quote has been particularly helpful and challenging to me as I try to live this out. I'd like to share it with you today so we can reflect on it together as a church. And here's what he writes in it. Dr. King says, by disregarding the fact that the gospel deals with man's body as well as with his soul, such a one-sided emphasis creates a tragic dichotomy between the sacred and the secular. To be worthy of its New Testament origin, the church must seek to transform both individual lives and the social situation that brings so many people the anguish of spirit and cruel bondage. What can we do? The answer is simple. Feed the poor, clothe the naked, and heal the sick. Where can we store our goods? Again, the answer is simple. We can store our surplus food free of charge in the shriveled stomachs of the millions of God's children who go to bed hungry every night. We can use our vast resources of wealth to wipe out poverty from the earth. In a real sense, all of life is interrelated. All men are caught in an inescapable network of mutuality, tied in a single garment of destiny. Whatever affects one directly affects all indirectly. I can never be what I ought to be until you are what you ought to be. And you can never be what you ought to be until I am what I ought to be. This is the interrelated structure of reality. It's that last part that resonates deeply within me. I can never be what I ought to be until you are what you ought to be. Man, that's so good. As we ask ourselves some questions, feel free to pause this video and we can reflect together. So the first question is this. What part of this quote is God using to speak to you? What might he be saying to you? And secondly, based on what God is saying, how might our life look different today? How might we live differently today? I think we'd all agree that there is so much work to be done in our world. The tragic murders of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, and Ahmaud Arbery sparked a national call for justice and accountability this past summer. And these events invited the church as a whole around our country to look in the mirror and ask tough questions about racial inequality and what it means to love our neighbors. Over the past weeks and months at Vineyard, right here, we've continued to explore the ways in which we can be agents of reconciliation in our community. And one of the ways we've done that is by continued dialogue through something called a Be the Bridge group. Be the Bridge is an organization that seeks to inspire people, as they say, to have distinctive and transformative responses to racial division and be present and intentional towards racial reconciliation. And the group here has created space for members in our Vineyard family to have the tough conversations about the issues we face while also seeking the common unity as Christ followers. If you're interested in joining in this conversation or participating in a Be the Bridge group in the future, just email us and let us know. We'd love to have you a part of that. And as we mentioned this summer when we began our journey, the process of racial reconciliation, it's not a sprint. It's a marathon, and we're all in process together. We're all listening to the Spirit and learning to become more like Jesus. So as we go into our world today, here are the words of Dr. King. Go out and work as though the very answer to our prayers depend on us, always living and breathing the good news of the gospel. You have a great week, and we'll see you real soon.